Hi, Delea and Dr. Lisa Robin back again for video 2 on Dancing with the Dark, which is about looking, embracing, and incorporating and dancing with the shadows in our lives. And actually later on in a course that I have one coming up for how to discover the shadows within your horse, what your horse's shadows are, ways to help identify that. Just advertisement. So I'm going to start today with my excerpts from my reading with Marina, and then Elisa is going to do a commentary on the astrology that relates to this. So these are just a few excerpts from my reading with Marina. She says, "You avoid the shadow because you fear you will only find fault with yourself, that all you will discover there is mistakes and shortcomings. A lot of us are taught that about our shadow. You only look to see your weakness in the shadow. This makes your thoughts about the shadow something that brings shame and vulnerability. And yes, vulnerability is in the shadow, but for you, the vulnerability is your strength within the shadow. You must learn to see your shadow as your strength. To do this, you must forgive yourself for all the judgments about yourself. Forgive yourself for becoming helpless and small, because these things, helpless and small, are not in the shadow. They are what you brought into the light. They are the things you look at. What is in the shadow is your power, your wisdom, and your enlightenment. What you perceive as the need to point out your low points to yourself and to others is avoidance of your shadow. Your shadow holds what you have not yet brought to light. You have brought plenty of your weaknesses and mistakes into the light. Now bring your power into the light." And just to inject, I actually, from my upbringing, and I'm not blaming parents or mother for anything because I believe we choose our life. But my experience this lifetime that I came into experience was to definitely make yourself as dumb and small as possible because you're nobody. So I've actually been really good at bringing those things into the light. But she says, "Give no thoughts to shame or apology for not bringing your strengths into the light already. And because you like to learn about rising and wisdom and enlightenment and magic, you tend to make it a study, a process. This is a waste of time. You have used learning and study as a placeholder. This is no longer needed." I get that. "You have worn your mistakes like a shameful sash of honor because you did not understand what the shadow was for. It was not for hiding, it was for intimacy, for transformation and forgiveness. The shadow is the womb. It allows for birth, rebirth, and revelation." And so the summary on that is, for me, I do a summary in these readings. I have misunderstood my shadow side my whole life. I was taught my mistakes and shortcomings were to be exploited. I needed to be shamed and judged for them, and penance was to be paid. Forever, I believed my greatness was to be kept secret, that I had no right to be brilliant. So I basically misunderstood my shadow my whole life. And it's very hard for me to be transparent, but there it is. So Elisa, can you see what the chart, how that aligns with that?
So it's really kind of fascinating because you have such a powerful, strong chart. And basically what the reading is saying is you're not living your power, right? So where could we see that? Chiron, which is a asteroid, which is also always called the wounded healer, which is kind of an odd term for it. Think of it as sort of your superpower, your hidden creator, your creative energy that you get because it was suppressed at some point, right? When we open the door to what's suppressed, we can feel a lot of power. It's in Aquarius in the seventh house. Seventh house is friendships, relationships, contractual relationships, intimate relationships to some extent. And Aquarius, which I know very well since I'm Aquarius, Aquarians know who they are when they're alone. And when they're in a crowd, what they realize is they're always an outlier. They never fit in. And they often judge themselves based on that. Why do I, and so does the rest of the world. The rest of the world likes everyone to line up. And so Aquarians are always sort of pushed in to be molded and lined up. And we are natural rebels and we are incapable of simply lining up. It's just not in our nature. And so we are taught then that that's something bad about us. And if we would just behave better, the world would be better. Instead of embracing, we came here to change the world, right? You also talked about sort of that emotional component. Your moon is in Pisces in the 8th house, and 8th house is the house of everything that scares us. And so in some ways, 8th and 12th, but 8th definitely holds our shadow. Like, what is that shadow? And your profound psychicness and your intuition and your empathic ability, which is what Pisces is all about, and it's the moon, which is what the moon is all about, is in that. And so what you bring out more than anyone I've ever met in these sessions that you have with horses or large dogs, is information that I have never heard any other reader bring out. It's almost like people who study the Course in Miracles, that kind of stuff, or the horses sound like Buddhists. I mean, it's
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
wisdom that you get, and you get it from the shadow. Because you're getting it without having memorized something in a book or learning how to do
Right.
it.
It's been revealed to me as I go. I haven't studied.
Right.
I look at other people's websites and they have all these certificates of everything they've studied. I have none, because
Right.
everything I've got has just been given to me from within me and brought out into the light by my relationship with animals.
Right. And so it is that place, that the wisdom that comes from the dark. And then finally, Pluto in your chart is in Leo in the second house. Second house is about money. Pluto is about leadership. This is like stepping up and saying, here's what I do, and it's amazing, right? And funny that Pluto is about the darkness and Leo is about the sunshine. So dancing in the darkness and the light is what brings you financial security.
Yeah, interesting. Bringing, like you talked about, psychic ability, intuition, empathic abilities, which I really have, because I never knew how to handle them. I never knew what to do with them.
Right.
And being a Pisces moon, I mean, it just makes me want to hide from those deep emotions because I can't take it.
Right.
And it took me a lifetime. It wasn't until just a few years ago that I got to the point that I understood being an empath and having, psychic intuition, psychic knowledge, that, and when I'm saying this, people, I'm not a psychic. That's not what I advertise I do, but I can relate to your animals and communicate with them. But it has been really hard for me to bring that into the light. I didn't want to because I was afraid of it, because being an empath can be highly traumatic, and empaths know that. Even today, I made a post on my website, and I had seen this post about, it was a pretty picture of a woman and a horse, and about, there was a quote about a good horse can change the course of your day. And what I instantly got from that was, but a bad human can make a bad day for a horse. I mean, what about the horse? And I didn't just think that, I felt it within my body because of being that empath and the collective of the horses out there. So it's taken a long time to bring that attribute of myself out into the light. And it's still a process, because it can be really, make me feel really vulnerable. And I can feel a lot of intensity from that, from situations with horses and even people sometimes. Right. But definitely animals, I have less of a filter for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's more in your chart. Also, you have Saturn and Scorpio in the 5th house. And so it is this deep sort of sensual, passionate, that Scorpios that get a bad rap, but Scorpios are like detectives who have the courage to go deep into the dark. And it's right next to your South Node, which is in Libra. It's like light, bringing that, going into the darkness and then finding the joy in it. It's in the 5th house. It also could be fun. Right? I mean, at some other time in our lives, we might have been goth and had a lot of fun being dark, right? But since we weren't born in that time, we were supposed to be like sunshiny hippies and that never, I was never,
I was certainly never.
Yeah.
Okay, so tribe, you've heard this video. This is an amazing reading. It carries so much information. So if you'd like to have one for yourself, with your horse and Dr. Lisa Robin, click on the link below. I'm going to set you up. Thanks for joining.